Alright, what's up everybody and welcome back to Fab Unofficial. As the title of this video probably gives away, I am here to give you a deck tech for the best deck in Blitz, hands down in my opinion. Obviously I should preface that by saying it's the best deck in Blitz if you enjoy drawing cards and having fun, which are definitely two things on the top of my priority list. So I do want to get out of the way. Obviously you can see that the deck in question is a Briar Blitz deck. Obviously big fan of the Rune Blades, so staying on theme for me. But Kano, Ira, Kasai, all great Blitz decks. Obviously if your goal is to win the tournament, just outright that's all you care about, there's obviously other considerations to make. But for me, I tend to take CC more competitively, and then Blitz is where you can experiment, have a bit of more fun. Obviously you want to stay competitive. Winning is always fun. But I think this game offers a lot more than has been explored yet, and for me, Blitz is the format where I like to really dive in and see what we can do with the card pool available to us. So my favorite Blitz deck ever, by far, is this Briar deck that I'm about to show you guys. But let's jump in. So obviously we'll start with the equipment suite first, and a mainstay is the Spellbound Creepers. Now you guys know how I feel about this equipment. There's a ton of text, it's completely busted, but the ability to play non-attack actions at instant speed is ridiculous, especially for one resource, and even more so when you're playing a hero like Briar, which gains advantage from having played multiple. It's also really easy in Runeblade to deal arcane damage and keep this around for a little longer, so you can get multiple activations, and the ability when you're playing those non-attacks at instant speed to gain extra action points to keep the turn going and just go so much bigger with what you're able to present for your opponent is just busted. So absolute no-brainer for me. I want to be playing Spellbound Creepers wherever possible, and it is definitely possible in this deck. I might even say this might be the best use case for Spellbound Creepers ever, from the decks that I've played at least. Next up, it re-entered back into the format when the dirty little Blitz Oldham deck left, and that is Crown of Seeds. We do have another headpiece in Crown of Providence, but Crown of Seeds still really good in this deck, mainly for the Kano Menace. It's a way that we can get to the cards that we need while still being able to prevent arcane damage, and it's just a really good card. And plus in Blitz you have 11 slots, so there's no reason not to include it. And speaking of which, I mentioned Crown of Seeds being part of the Arcane Barrier. You can see that this Briar deck is pretty equipped to deal with Kano in terms of arcane damage. We're suiting up 2 Arcane Barrier equipments in the Nullrune Boots and the Nullrune Robe. Then in the arm slot we have Shock Charmers, which is giving us Spell Void 2, which Spell Void is what you want to be doing and having against that Kano deck. And then Crown of Seeds. So obviously off a blue you're able to represent a Crown of Seeds, 2 lots of Arcane Barrier, and then you have the Shock Charmers up just in case. So you're pretty well covered there. And another little spicy number in this list, which is probably going to give you a little hint as to where this deck is leading, is the Mark of Lightning. Now this is one that you don't often see. So Mark of Lightning just says whenever a lightning or elemental attack you control is defended by a card from hand. So if you're attacking and your opponent defends with a card from their hand, any card, you can destroy Mark of Lightning, and if you do, the attack deals 1 damage to the defending hero. Now it's important to note that that 1 damage is not arcane damage, it's just damage. So they can't AB1 it, but obviously there are other prevention effects which some decks have access to that may be able to deal with this. But in general, now that Oldham's out of the format and Crown of Seeds is gone, this damage is pretty much always going to get through. I don't use this equipment all too much, but there are a few matchups where I do like to bring it in. And again, you have 11 slots, so it definitely has its use cases, and I think it's warranted in the list. But I don't want to spoil too much of why that's in there, because that is up next. If we scroll down, obviously you can see some of the cards here. And first up, and sort of my favorite card in the game potentially, I always have so much fun when I'm playing it, is Blossoming Spellblade. Now this card is freaking bonkers. It suffers from the fact that it's an earth and lightning fusion in order to get the effects. Now it's really tight. You need to have an earth and a lightning card in your hand, and that became so much harder to do when they banned ball lightning, because your options for lightning cards were pretty limited. So I think that's why this never really saw any play in CC, but in Blitz, with the smaller deck size, I think I'm sort of happy where I've landed in terms of the lightning cards that are in the list and your ability to consistently get to fusing Blossoming Spellblade. But if we go through, some of you may not know what it does, but if it was fused, it gains the ability of, whenever this deals damage, so any type of damage, to an opposing hero, you may banish a non-attack action from your graveyard. If you do, you can play it this turn as though it were an instant. Frickin', like I said, it's busted. But whenever you attack with Blossoming Spellblade, if it was fused, you also deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. Now again, the first ability isn't once per turn. You can get multiple activations of it as long as you're not targeting the same spell, because once you've used it for the ability, it gets banished, so you can't reuse the same thing over and over again. But essentially, if that arcane damage, if your opponent takes that arcane damage, then you're going to be able to replay a non-attack from your graveyard at instant speed, gain the action points associated and any of the abilities that it gives you. And then also, they're still facing down a 6 power attack, which, if that hits, you get another go at that ability. So Blossoming Spellblade is a bananas card that just, the ceiling of this deck is insanely high. I have done some absolutely busted things with this card. And mainly, I'm doing those things by utilizing either of 2 specific cards. First up, Gorganian Tome. Now, this is a legendary. You only get 1 of them. Again, it's Blitz, so you'll get to see it a little bit more frequently. But it simply is a go again non-attack action that says draw X cards, where X is 1 plus the number of Gorganian Tomes in all graveyards. So usually this is a cantrip. You play this, you draw 1, and you carry on with your turn. So obviously in Briar, you get to utilize the fact that this is half of an embodiment of lightning for her ability. But sometimes, I think maybe twice ever playing this deck, my opponent's been playing Gorganian Tome as well, and I've actually gotten to draw 2 cards, but that often doesn't come up. But the other card we're taking advantage of on the Blossoming Spellblade is the Tome of Fyendal. Now, a lot of people think about this as a setup card where it has to be played from your arsenal because you want the life gain from it. But if you're playing this from your graveyard for free at instant speed, so it doesn't take your action point up, then you're paying 1 resource to draw 2 cards. And again, I told you the ceiling for this deck was crazy high, and it is because of that combination. The ability to Blossoming Spellblade, if they take any damage from it after you fuse, then you can, hopefully you've set it up, but you very often can Tome of Fyendal. That's what you're trying to go for in order to continue the turn and just go absolutely crazy. So obviously that's the sort of combo finish ceiling, but you get all the good stuff that Briar normally gives you in the Channel Mount Heroic package. I'm not going to talk about this card too much. If you've been playing, you know what this does, and if not, look it up, it's crazy. And along with that, obviously, you get the Earth Blues. So Autumn's Touch and whatnot, which also pair with the Force of Nature, but we are playing a new Earth Blue in this list, Anthem of Spring. Technically not released yet. You can have another Earth Blue, Tome of Harvest or something like that in this slot, but I've already gone and updated the deck to include this. Now this is a Briar specialization, simply just a blue Earth card, so it goes into Channel Mount Heroic. But again, is a go again non-attack action, which pumps your attacks to different breakpoints, and also represents half of an embodiment of lightning, as well as a unity ability. But we're not blocking all that much, but maybe in the Ira matchup or Kasai, that unity ability to double block and get another embodiment of Earth does come in sometimes, but I haven't played a ton with this card, so I'm not really sure how useful that is going to be in Blitz, but it's just half an embodiment of lightning and a better Earth blue than its counterparts. So really, really cool. And obviously with this card, it does also have the use case where if you have a second Earth card for your big turn, this would put Blossoming Spellblade at 7 power, another breakpoint, or it combos with the 4 power attacks, which is again pushes them a little further and higher. So really, really cool. Now, in order to support the Blossoming Spellblade, obviously we have a semi-lightning package in the deck. The best non-lightning card that makes use of this is Veiler Flash. So this is just a 1/5, blocks 3 lightning fusion, but if it was fused, you may play your next non-attack action card this turn as though it were an instant. So you don't get to play it from your graveyard like Blossoming Spellblade, but you do get to play it from hand at instant speed. So this card is like a really small Blossoming Spellblade. You get to do the same sort of shenanigans that you're trying to set up. Like if you have the Tome in Arsenal, you can Veiler Flash, play it, gets around the action point, and then if you've managed to play the a non-attack or set up an embodiment of lightning, you're also going to make another one with Briar, so you can do some really, really cool busted things with Veiler Flash in this deck as well. And then obviously you need lightning cards, so the Lightning Surges is really good in this deck. You're playing the blue Heaven's Claws and Electrifies as pitch cards that also can be used to fuse, but you do get Channel Thunderstep as well. So Channel Thunderstep, basically I've seen no play, but I really, really like it. This deck can operate pretty well off just a yellow pitch. With an embodiment lightning, this is a 4-block, but it's just a 1-cost, go again, non-attack action, that whenever you play an action card, so it's an action card, any action, doesn't have to be just attack action. So this again plays well with the Tome of Findles. You can pay 1 resource, and if you do, it gains go again. And it has the same channel ability as Channel Mount Heroic, but for lightning cards. But because it only costs 1, very easy to play this and keep it around to set up for a really big following turn. So really, really cool. Now the other card I do want to touch on, it's a one-off in this list, is the Sting of Sorcery. I kind of wanted another blue pitch, so Sting of Sorcery sort of fit that, but it is an aura, which plays into some of the other cards, like Swarming Gloomveil in the list, but so it's an aura, you play it, and it has the sort of ongoing ability where when it attack actions, cards you control gain. When you attack with this, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. So you play this to start your turn. Any attack actions that follow are going to have that line of text. Now this allows you to play around and set up to get around Arcane Barrier, because Blossoming Spellblade, if you have a Sting of Sorcery in play and you fuse a Blossoming Spellblade, it's going to have 2 instances of deal 1 damage. So you get its ability for each of the damage that's dealt, and if your opponent's only playing Arcane Barrier 1, because it's a single source, they're only able to AB one of those lots of damage. So it's just a way to set up to push through a big Blossoming Spellblade turn. So that's why that's there. But I'll go over a few of the lines of plays a little bit more after I've shown you the full deck. But here we go. You can see it in all its glory. So this is the deck. There's a ton of things going on here. Things like the Exude Confidence, which allows you to set up the combo turn with protection. Obviously in Blitz you get Plunder Run, which really pushes Briar to another level again. I really wanted to fit a second blue Plunder Run in the list, but it's kind of made way for the Sting of Sorcery. Obviously Pulse is in there as you can fuse off a single card, and with Crown in some matchups you're able to set up the Pulse with the Blossoming Spellblade. Really, really good. And then you have a lot of the usual suspects in Briar. The 0 for 4s, Snatches, Sonata Arcanics, so on. And I think both the Sow Tomorrow and Electrify are really good in this deck. Also, Cantrips, make Embodiment of Lightnings. But yeah, I'm going to go over a few of the lines now. But if you want a hella fun Blitz deck to play, I cannot recommend this Briar list any higher. So yeah, that's the deck. You can find a deck list below if you did want to give it a whirl. But let's jump into some of the play patterns. All right, so I wanted to go over a couple of the lines in a little bit more detail. You probably have it based off what we talked about when I was showing you the deck, but just to break it down for those that might not be aware, we're going to start with the Channel Mount Heroic turns. Now, the best setup for this is you want a blue earth card in your hand along with a Channel Mount Heroic either in your hand or arsenal. You are going to pitch the blue earth card to play the Channel Mount, and then on that same turn what you want to do is follow it up with a 0 for 4 attack. That can be any of them, Snatch, Entwine Lightning, Lightning Surge, it doesn't matter, but all you want to do is after playing the Channel Mount represent 7 damage at their face and hopefully make them feel like they have to block some amount of that, so they're not really representing much on their turn when they come try and throw back at you. But that's what you want to do with that, and then that means that Channel Mount's in play, you get to put the Earth card on the bottom, and you're hoping for a good hand off the top, or you've set it up if you've managed to pitch stack, although Blitz can go pretty quick, so that's not super common. But yeah, you're hoping for cards off the top that are going to allow you to just take whatever your opponent sends at you on their turn, whatever they have left, and then fire back an absolutely monstrous turn following, now that you have the Channel Mount Heroic buff. But that's Channel Mount Heroic in a nutshell. Pretty simple, pretty easy. The one I wanted to touch on a little bit more is the magical Christmas land setup for Blossoming Spellblade. Okay, so this is the ceiling for this deck, right? And obviously there's a million decision trees and branches that come off this play, so I can't really tell you the exact line, but how you want to start it off and what you draw is kind of going to dictate where it goes from there. But ultimately, you want to set it up so at the start of your turn, you already have an Embodiment of Lightning. All right, then you are going to play Sting of Sorcery. So that's non-attack action number 1. You are then going to pitch a blue to play Blossoming Spellblade, and you are going to fuse it. In a magical Christmas land scenario, you're able to reveal Pulse of Candlehold potentially, because that only takes 1 card, but you know, you're perfectly fine if that's like a Lightning Surge and some Earth card or whatever. It doesn't really matter too much. Now the Blossoming Spellblade, because of the Sting of Sorcery, is going to present 2 individual instances of 1 arcane damage before they even get to decide what they do on the block. Now, assuming they got AB1, they're probably going to prevent 1 of that. But when they take the second lot of 1 arcane damage, you are now able to play a Tome of Findle from your graveyard for using the 1 resource you have floating, and you get to draw 2 cards. But not only that, the Tome of Findle, because even though you're playing it at instant speed, is still your second non-attack action for the turn, you are going to create another Embodiment of Lightning, which can be used to give your next attack go again. Now, you are set up, you've got a full grip once again, and your next attack is going to have go again because of the Embodiment of Lightning. You've still got a Sting of Sorcery in play, which is going to chip even more damage their way. But before you even get to any of that, they still have to decide how they want to block the 6 damage coming at their face. Otherwise, you are going to get a whole nother use on that Blossoming Spellblade's fusibility. Okay, that is the magical Christmas land scenario, but it actually does happen. And even in the event that you don't have the Sting of Sorcery, that is still plenty good. You're stripping a card from their hand in order to prevent the arcane, and you're taking at least 2 cards, assuming they have 3 blocks, from their hand, and it essentially means they have nothing to throw back at you on their turn. So that's the line, but along with that, obviously, you've got a ton of just really good cards. Briar's ability to make embodiments, plus a bunch of really good rate attacks, and being able to represent split damage with arcane from your non-attacks, attack actions, and having the Rosetta Thorn, which is something we haven't even talked about. You still get to play one of the most busted equipment in the game, is often enough just by itself to get the game won. So yeah, that's the deck. I hope you guys take it for a whirl. Like I said, the link is down below. Definitely do check it out and let me know your thoughts. There's been a bunch of cards that have made it in and out of the list since I've been playing this deck. But yeah, do let me know what you think. I'm always looking to improve it. So if you think there's a card that maybe I've missed, I want to hear about it. But let me know how you go. Awesome. Until next time, guys.